So you're driving home from school one day and you realize you need to figure out something for your Civil War battle lesson plan for next week. You rack your brain for activities, you think of primary sources, you try to think of any interesting videos, anything to engage your students. You can't come up with anything. Well, you think to yourself, wouldn't it just be amazing if I could take my students to Gettysburg? Well, have no fear. James A. Percoco has you covered. In his book, Take the Journey, Percoco shows teachers how to bring historical sites and national parks into their classrooms through technology, primary sources, and place-based activities.
Take the Journey by James A. Percoco is a very practical book about teaching students history through place-based learning. This book is based on the nonprofit organization called The Journey Through Hallowed Ground, which is a 4-state partnership to preserve and educate about the historical richness from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to Charlottesville, Virginia. Percoco splits his book into 6 chapters. The first introduces the need for teachers to continue to be researchers. He does this by telling a story of his experience digging through primary sources to create a curriculum about eugenics in the United States. He says teachers need to view themselves as more than just dispensers of information and practitioners of pedagogy, and should embrace themselves as scholars with genuine intellectual curiosity. The next 4 chapters, he takes the reader on a journey through the different historical sites on the Journey Through Hallowed Ground, and explains how they can be used to teach a plethora of topics relating to U.S. history. He lists plenty of free resources available to teachers which make the content accessible to all teachers, not just those within geographical range of the Journey Through Hallowed Ground sites. In the last chapter, Percoco tells the story of a student-led project created to preserve a local historical site. He discusses the usefulness of place-based learning and the importance of preserving our local history. I found 2 themes that stuck out to me from this book. The first was that we need to create organic content and interest by doing your own research as a teacher, letting primary sources speak for themselves, and having students engage in place-based and project-based learning. The second theme that I found was that every area has a local history that can be tied to national history and can be used to excite learners. He talked a lot about the Journey Through Hallowed Ground sites, but he also talked about lots of other places. He even mentioned Utah and how the Mormon journey can be used to talk about westward expansion and persecution in America, and how Utah teachers can go to these sites to teach their students about that. Alright, let's go back to our dilemma of finding a lesson plan for the Civil War battles. So in chapter 4 of Percoco's book, he suggests a lot of resources using the Journey Through Hallowed Ground sites to find resources for lesson plans and for activities. The first one that he talks about, or one of them that he talks about, is the National Park Service. So this is the Gettysburg National Park, and there's a lot of resources that you can find here. If you go to this Learn a Park down to education, there's a whole bunch of things, and the one that I am on right now is Parks as Classrooms. Another one that he talks about is called the Civil War Trust, and this one has a lot of awesome ideas. One that I love and from a lesson plan is called Gettysburg 360, and this is an interactive map that can teach students about the battle scene as they tour it virtually.
Percoco has many explicit activity and application ideas that he presents in his book. The main focus of these ideas are to create intrinsic motivation and inspire a sense of inquiry in his students. He often discusses how he wants to create a way of learning that is fun and inspiring.
One of these activities that he talks highly about is something called vodcasts, and this is through the Journey Through Hallowed Grounds, and it's a partnership that they work with who created the activity. And the partner is of the student, by the student, for the student. And they talk about these vodcasts, which are student-led, student-produced, and student-written project videos that are filmed on Journey Through the Hallowed Ground National Heritage Areas. And they result in mini movies that offer a permanent record of the students' personal experiences and interpretations. And Prococo talked about how he did this with his students and how it was very successful and how they loved it. And it inspired a lot of creation and intrinsic motivation in his students. He also suggests doing a reader's theater. He suggests many apps such as Lincoln 1863 or many of the Civil War Trust apps, which they have for each Civil War battlefield. This one is for Gettysburg and can take you in a map through it and offers some games and things like that. He suggests using board games like Underground Railroad, which can also be found on the Civil War Trust. And he suggests using Facebook for students to create profiles of historical characters, such as this one of George Washington. Another gift which he suggests that I have titled Rank and Report goes as follows. First, give the students a list of events. Divide the students into groups of 3 or 4. Give each group markers and a piece of newsprint. Have students research the given topics and rank them in order of significance as they see fit. Post the newsprint on the wall and select a spokesperson to explain what they chose and why. You should also have a set of your own rankings and be prepared to defend your choices. This can be done to introduce a new topic because it will get students engaged and excited when they realize the importance of the event that they are speaking. So some of the strengths of Prococo's book, I thought the biggest strength of his book was the abundant resources that he provided. There were so many websites and videos and lesson plans and primary documents and books to read, so many things that he offered. These were some of the things that I found to be most useful. All of them are curriculum or lesson plan websites, but they all offered loads of resources that would be helpful for any teacher that is teaching U.S. history. Some of the weaknesses that I found with his book were that many of his suggestions were very specific, and it was difficult to understand how they could be adapted to teach other concepts. Another weakness that I found was that he rarely spoke of how his assignments and projects could be adapted for diverse learners. Another thing was that he briefly mentions the time constraints are a real issue with his project-based and place-based projects, but he doesn't really delve into how to deal with it. Some of his projects took 2 to 3 or more full school days, and left me questioning how did he get the teachers from other subjects in the administration to approve this. Overall, though, I thought this book had more strengths than weaknesses. I would suggest this book to anyone that is going to be a U.S. history teacher. However, for teachers of other social science subjects, it may not be as relatable. I borrowed a copy of this book, and I think that I will purchase a copy of my own for my future classroom. If you are going to be teaching U.S. history, I would highly recommend that you do the same.